That's one of the crazier games I've seen. After the second period, I was debating on even making this video because it was so bad to start. The team came in pretty slow. There were obviously a lot of factors for that. They traveled to St. Louis today, just like they did Tuesday in Detroit. So that obviously played a factor. They came out pretty slow. The legs looked really tired on pretty much everybody. And that everybody was a pretty much entire AHL roster. There weren't too many NHL pieces on that team, though there were a lot of guys on the roster fighting for potential NHL spots. We'll see if they make it. I would say some of the stuff they displayed in the third period by some guys definitely boosted their cases. And yeah, Blackhawks take the game 4-2 in St. Louis with a 4-goal third period. Like I said, the first two periods were so bad. Like I wrote in my notes, legs are heavy to start the game. Ugly first period. They were outshot 14-5 in that first period. I was right, like Ethan Del Mastro was struggling. I was like, Doc hasn't been great, but he's been physical at least because he got in a fight earlier in the game, and there was another scrum Doc got in that was a pretty major part of this game. Spencer Knight really kept them in it. I had that written in my notes early that it was basically Knight keeping them in this game. He was really sharp tonight, ended up stopping 31 of 33 shots, and really the only two goals he let up, one he had no chance on, and the other one was kind of a weird shot from Dalibor Dvorsky that snuck in early in the first period. But yet Knight was really good. Blues really had like 6 or 7 high quality chances that Knight was able to stop. He looked really sharp tonight, kept the Blackhawks in, and allowed them to put together a big third period and steal the game. This game was really like a polar opposite to the first preseason game in Detroit, because in that game, the Blackhawks, I thought at least, actually came out pretty strong. They played a really good first period, and then they kind of fizzed out as the game progressed, and really the second half of the game, really even the second and third period entirely, were really bad. They just didn't, it seemed like they ran out of gas, and yeah, they were just kind of getting shelled that second and third. And then this game, they came out super slow. That first period was one of the worst I've seen in a while, and then that second period wasn't too much better until you get to really the end of the period. It was really like the last 6 or 7 minutes of that period, because they had a couple power plays there, and the power play actually started to generate chances. The first power play in the first period was pretty bad, but then the power play with Lucas Reichel, Nick Lardis, who both seem to complement each other really well in this game. They were generating chances on these power plays, and that gave the Blackhawks at least a little bit of life, because up to that point, like I do the clips on Twitter of like any chances or stuff. I had no clips of any chances up until that point. I was able to finally start to put out a couple clips, and that was because they actually started to finally generate a few chances. That momentum really carried into the third period. The third period, the Blackhawks just all of a sudden came alive. They came out strong, generated a few chances. They kind of got some sort of lucky goals. It was a shot from Dominic Toninato that just found its way in. I think it hit a skate in front. And then the very shift after that, the same shift for Toninato, he went in on the forecheck. The goalie for St. Louis misplayed the puck, and then Toninato just slid it out to Gavin Hayes, who was crashing in front, and he put it in, and all of a sudden it was a tie game just like that. And then from that point on, really, the Blackhawks had all the momentum, and they were the best team. They were definitely the better team in the third period, especially after they tied it up. They really controlled play, and then the highlight of the game happened. I believe it was Oscar Sundqvist who was skating up the through the neutral zone. Colton Dach just crushed him, laid him out. That brought everybody together in sort of a scrum, but the officials didn't blow the play dead because Oliver Moore was streaking down one-on-one. And Moore struck down, and obviously he ended up scoring on that rush while everybody else was in a scrum in center ice. Well, shout out to the officials for not blowing the play dead, because there was no reason to. It was, I think, Parayko who came in and he wanted to start a scrum, but Colton Dach hadn't done anything to stop the play. He just delivered a big clean hit, and everybody was getting together in front of the net. Moore was able to score. They didn't even show that on the broadcast because the camera had cut to the scrum in the middle of the ice, so that was such a weird sequence, but it ended up being the game-winning goal for the Blackhawks. It was a really nice shot for Moore they showed on the replay. And then with the Dickinson empty netter with a few seconds to go, the Blackhawks were able to seal and steal a win in St. Louis. But that goal from Moore brings me to a couple of my points from this game. One being Oliver Moore. I thought he had a pretty good game, and really all the young forwards in the top 6 played really well. I thought Moore was good. Ryan Green, especially in the faceoff circle and defensively, I thought he was really good. His back checking has been noticeable. There's been a few. I mean, I know it's kind of like we're really talking about back checking here, but I've just noticed him a few times having really strong back checks, and I just figured I'd throw that out there. But especially in the face-off circle, he was really good. I think he was up through 60% of his draws or something through the first two periods. And yeah, he ended up winning 59% on the day. So he had a good day in the face-off circle. Obviously, Colton Dock, he was in that scrum. He had a fight with Logan Malou earlier, and I just thought, yet again, even though it wasn't his best playmaking game, there were a few times where I was like, he could have made some better plays, especially more with streaking up the ice. He had the puck, had an opportunity to get it to him, streaking up the ice, and he didn't, ended up turning it over. I didn't think it was his best playmaking game. I don't think we've seen the best play. I'm not that he's like some crazy skill player, but he does have some skill to his game. I don't think we've seen that early in the preseason, but I think he showed enough physically and physicality wise by just laying hits. He had, let's see how many hits. He had 6 hits again for the second game in a row tonight, and then obviously the fight, obviously the scrum. I think he showed enough to make the opening night roster in the bottom 6, just purely from a physicality standpoint. And then, like I alluded to earlier, Lucas Reichel and Nick Lardis were both really good, especially Lucas Reichel. We've been kind of waiting for a Lucas Reichel to kind of show that he actually should be on the team and that he really wants a spot on the team, because we haven't really seen that out of Lucas Reichel until tonight. He was really flying around the ice, really good playmaking game out of Lucas Reichel, and Nick Lardis had a few chances too. I think he would have scored if not for him snapping his stick on a one-time shot. He had the whole cage open on that power play late in the second period, but unfortunately his stick snapped right as he went to shoot it, or else I think he would have been on the board. I thought he had a good game, and I think Reichel and Lardis were playing off each other very well. The one NHL line, or at least guaranteed NHL line, that was playing in this game was Jason Dickinson line with Sam Lafferty and Ilya Mikheyev. I didn't think they were too good today, but there's obviously, they're veteran players. They traveled the same day. There's obvious reasons for why I'm not going to read too much into it. But I didn't think they were their best today. Sam Lafferty had a couple semi-breakaway attempts, only got one decent shot off, or got one shot off, and the other one he kind of got his pocket picked. That second breakaway actually was off a really good flip pass from Lucas Reichel. He lofted one perfectly for Lafferty to set him up on a breakaway. And the fourth line was actually really good too. That was one of the better lines as well. They were probably the more consistent line throughout the whole game. I think the top 6 especially really came on in the second half of the game, but I felt like the fourth line with Tony Nato, Gavin Hayes, and Martin Misiak, I thought that was a really good line throughout today. Obviously, Tony Nato had 2 points, Gavin Hayes had a goal, and then I think Martin Misiak had a good two-way game. I noticed him a few times defensively making plays, and I'm actually very happy to shout him out in the video, because in the prospect showcase, I was like, yeah, Misiak didn't really have his best weekend, so happy to say he had a pretty good game tonight. So somehow I'm sitting here talking about how pretty much everyone in the forward group had a good night tonight, because if you would have told me I'd be saying that through 2 periods, I would have called you crazy, because, man, they were real bad through 2 periods. Now, moving to the back end, I do want to talk about a few guys here. We'll start, I guess, with the NHL pair, or at least projected NHL pair right now, which was Ethan Del Mastro and Connor Murphy. I thought Connor Murphy was really good tonight. He stepped up a few times. He was physical. He was good defensively. And he also had 2 assists in this game. So I thought it was a really good night for Murphy. Obviously, he's going to be on the team. Ethan Del Mastro, he did end up with an assist, but I didn't think it was his best game, especially through 2 periods. The first 2 periods, he really struggled. He hasn't shown a ton in these first 2 preseason games. Definitely still a guy that's going to get extended looks this preseason and seems to have the leg up on anyone else for that 6th defenseman spot. And even though I don't think he had his best game, I didn't think really any of the other defensemen kind of trying for that spot were too good either. I thought Korchinski had another solid game, but not really a game that he stood out by any means. So I feel like he's pretty much locked into an AHL role this year, because I think it just makes the most sense for him to play and in a first pair role in the AHL as opposed to playing third pair minutes in the AHL or in the NHL. He could totally handle himself in the NHL, but it's just going to make more sense for him to play consistent minutes on that first pair in all situations in the AHL as opposed to that third pair minutes in the NHL. Nolan Allen was definitely pretty decent tonight. I would personally have him in the NHL top 6 to start the season. I thought he was really good with Connor Murphy to start last season, and then he ended up kind of falling off a little bit and getting sent down to the AHL, but I would love to start Nolan Allen in the NHL. I think he should have the leg up over Del Mastro, though it does kind of seem at this stage like because Korchinski and Allen have been paired together throughout practices, throughout games, it seems like that's going to be the top pair in Rockford. So I'm not sure how much of a shot he really has to make the NHL team. And then Louis Crevier wasn't too good tonight either, but he's kind of locked into the 7th defenseman role, so his status isn't going to change too much there. And then Grzelcyk was the last defenseman tonight. Didn't see too much from him. I feel like it's going to be Del Mastro over Grzelcyk. I don't really see him making the team unless there's some type of injury. So I think that covers this game pretty well. They play a back-to-back tomorrow. We will see some guys from this group in that game tomorrow, but probably a lot more NHL players tomorrow that we'll see. Pretty crazy win for the Blackhawks, honestly. A very exciting third period of this game. That was versus a Blues team that featured a lot of their NHLers. So really nice to see that comeback, a 4-goal third period. Very exciting one. A few of you guys left some comments on my takeaways post. If you want to leave a comment, then just check out my Twitter at Blackhawks Focus. I do the takeaways post after every game. So let's see what we got here. Oliver Moore is making the opening night roster. And someone else said Colton Dach is making the opening night roster. Definitely see Colton Dach making it in the bottom 6. I think he's just been so impactful, even if he hasn't had his best skill game. Oliver Moore has been pretty good. He's surprised me. I feel like he's been better than what I expected heading into camp, heading into the prospect showcase, heading into preseason. He's exceeded expectations for me. I'm not sure it's going to be enough for him to make the opening night roster, though. Maybe if Landon Slaggert stays down, he fills that spot on the third line, but then also, Lucas Reichel's there, and then you're throwing Lucas Reichel where? Just scratching him? So it still seems like Moore is most likely to start in the AHL, but based off what we've seen, he may not be there for long. A few others saw Reichel and Knight both being pretty good today. As we mentioned earlier, I felt like they were two of the better players on the ice tonight. So yeah, really good game overall for the Blackhawks. Really exciting one. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you thought of this game. If you watched this one, Blackhawks back in action tomorrow. We'll have another video. Hopefully they can put together more of a consistent effort instead of just having one good period, but I guess one is better than 0.